Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hangouts with Visionary Leaders, intelligent and engaging discussions with visionaries, thought leaders, and change makers. In today's show, we're going to be talking to Akshay Nanavati, who we've had on the show before. We're going to be speaking to him about his most recent running expedition across the Caribbean and the obstacles that he faced along the way. We'll be hearing all about that journey, how those obstacles have turned into opportunities for him, and we'll be learning about more of his journey as well. I'm your host, Lisa Ingalls. I'm very passionate about serving the emergence of our human and social potential through my programs and services, which you can learn more about by visiting www.innerstatecoaching.com. While you're there, feel free to pick up my free report on the 5 steps to creating a radical breakthrough. So we've reached an era of human possibility, what I like to call as human possibility. Individual as well as collective leadership is critical as we navigate our way through old and outdated paradigms that no longer serve us in moving towards an expanded life and a freer future. Humanity itself, I believe, is on the precipice of a new era of peace, sustainability, health, and prosperity. But the question is, will we as a collective choose to commit ourselves to peace and to declare an end to the disharmony that we're experiencing in the world? Will we as a collective turn the potential for possibility into probability? And how do we do this? These are the types of questions that we bring to the table in this show, and we're interested in exploring innovative ideas through engaging discussion that can help us to birth a new humanity. So this show is really all about bringing together visionary leaders like my guest Akshay today to give guidance, support, and inspiration as we awaken to our individual and collective potential. So in this episode of Hangouts with Visionary Leaders, Akshay Nanavati is joining me to share the obstacles and opportunities of his most recent run across the Caribbean, where he battled heat exhaustion and dehydration, of all things. As you can imagine, every quest, but especially those quests that are as big as Akshay's, are sure to have some obstacles. So we'll be talking to Akshay about those. If you're joining us live, please do let us know that you're here. We're seeing some people in the comments. Thank you so much for letting us know that you're here. I see already Christopher Vogelman, Mike Fountain, Ray Lay is here. So thanks you guys for showing up and joining in this discussion. We're interested in hearing your voice as well. Now, if you didn't come to the first hangout that I did with Akshay and didn't get to learn about him there, let me give you just a little bit more of an intro of him before I get him up on the screen. Akshay Nanavati is a 28-year-old U.S. Marine veteran turned outdoor expeditionist whose mission impossible is to cross every country in the world by foot. Whether that's, mostly that'll be running, I believe. We'll talk to him a little bit more about that. Mostly that's running, but he also does some skiing and snowshoeing types of things as well. Now, if you ask him why he's doing this, he'll tell you that he's doing it to discover the boundaries of human potential. Now you know why he's a guest of mine on this show. The other piece of Akshay's mission is to unite the human family that's currently torn apart with strife by raising $1 million for the organization Create Global Healing, whose vision it is to connect adults and children worldwide in the spirit of oneness and an unbroken circuit of giving and receiving so that we can co-create a better future for ourselves and the world at large. So welcome, Akshay, to the show. Once again, it's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That's a real honor and a pleasure to be here.
I know. It's been now, I think you came on the show in April, I believe, or maybe it was beginning of May, and you had come on the show, and this was right before you were leaving on your trip to the Caribbean. And well, before we talk about your trip, why don't you tell us just a little bit more for people who didn't get to see that first hangout with us together just a little bit about what your journey is, what your mission is, and how you're doing this.
Sure, sure. So the goal is, like you said, to run across, or for the most part, run across every country in the world. And it's one of those things I don't know when I will accomplish it. It's pretty much my lifelong project, and I don't even know if I will successfully accomplish it. But that's kind of the best part, because it's about the journey. And I'm just gonna keep taking one step at a time, crossing every country every year, knocking off a few more countries, and really experiencing the world. And the higher purpose behind this, I mean, there's two reasons I believe we do anything. There's a self-motivation and a greater than self-motivation. So for the self-motivation is to discover my own limits, see how far I can go, and push those limits even beyond what I thought possible. And experience the world. I love traveling, I love meeting new people, new cultures, and seeing the world in a different light. And nothing like doing it on foot, where you really get to engage and be with the ground fully, be with the people fully. And the greater than self-motivation is to really connect with the human family, to unite the human family, to inspire people through this own journey, because I'm not a good runner. I have flat feet, I have scoliosis, I have a blood condition, and I'm not a fast runner, but so biology does not equal destiny, right? Like our mind is so much more powerful than that. So to inspire people and then to connect people all over the globe in this one platform, through this one journey, through athletics, through fitness, which I truly believe has the power to heal the world in a radical way, and connect people through that, to, like I said, unite the human family. So no matter what religion, race, background we are all the same, and really show people that. So once we see that, how can there be as much indifference, war, and strife as there is? That's kind of the higher mission.
It's an amazing mission, and I of course, for everybody out there, if you don't know me already, I'm a runner as well. So that was one of the reasons why I really connected with Akshay's vision and his mission, because he's using the mode of running to do this. But I think what's more fascinating than the fact that that running is the mode that you're choosing to do this, Akshay, is that you just stated it. You're not a runner. You have flat feet. You have scoliosis. You have a blood condition. Were you told at some point that you shouldn't be exercising? I mean, you were in the Marines, which is very active as well. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. No, two doctors before going to two doctors that because of my blood condition, boot camp made it. I went to a third doctor, got a letter I needed, but doctors a long time ago, and since then, at first it became sort of a mental barrier that I had to overcome, and now it's something that is. And so you keep training and you keep getting better and better and better, and you deal with it, like anything, any obstacles. So it's no longer sort of a factor that I personally let interfere with this mission.
Yeah, and so what made you decide running, though? If running wasn't a natural thing to you, was it something that you're like, oh, I really enjoy running even though I don't run much? Or what was it about running, out of curiosity?
Yeah, I mean, so when before I even joined the Marines, I used to do a lot of drugs. I kind of squandered away about a year and a half of my life with drugs and lost 2 friends to that lifestyle. But when I got out and joined the Marines, through the Marines I started finding more positive ways to channel that energy and to really get that positive high. So since then I got into all kinds of outdoor sports. Mountaineering was my main passion for a long time. And I got into mountaineering, skydiving, scuba diving. I mean, you name it, I tried it and enjoyed it. And running kind of was a natural way, because running is something you can do anywhere, right? Like if there's no mountains, you can't climb mountains. But you can run anywhere. And that's the kind of fascination with it. No matter where I was, you just put on your running shoes. It's so simple. It's really kind of simplicity at its finest. And when you're out on the trails, it's just you and your mind. And sometimes you listen to music, but it's just putting one foot in front of the other. And that simplicity of the whole activity is very appealing to me. And plus, I love biking as well, but it's slower than biking. So in some senses, you see more of the place than you would, just as you would see more on a bike than you would driving through a place, you see more running than you would even on a bike. So, I mean, in my own streets in New Jersey, I've honestly run through new places and seen a new river that I never noticed before driving through it, So running became this natural way for me to really test my limits, and also something I can do anywhere. I mean, when I travel by experiencing every country in the world, you can't mountain climb through every country, right? Like, not every country has mountains. You can't, you theoretically could bike through it, but I preferred running because of the simplicity of it. It's a real minimalism at its finest. Just you and a pair of running shoes, and you can explore the entire world that way.
Yeah, it is.
But it still allows you to put your mind and body in that same way that these other pursuits do as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think You just were picked up by CNN, wrote an article on you, and one of in the headliner was that you have also used running to overcome PTSD. Can you talk a little bit more to that?
So when I came back from Iraq, the VA diagnosed me with PTSD, and I always like to say it in that way, in the sense that I never sort of say that I have PTSD, because I say the VA diagnosed me with it. I believe that it's that PTSD is a label. We can always choose our own labels, and just because you have symptoms of trauma, just because, for example, if a loud noise happens, I may jump more than the average person, it doesn't mean you have a disorder. There's such a thing as post-traumatic growth. And I think running is an avenue to experience post-traumatic growth. Adversity is a gift, and we can use it as so Iraq, I came back with certain symptoms. I struggled around crowds. I jumped when there was loud noises. Now, just because those things happen doesn't mean we have PTSD, right? Or it doesn't mean we have a disorder. But I was diagnosed with the disorder, and I chose to instead embrace all these avenues of adversity that I experienced in Iraq, and really channel that adversity through a higher form, through physical fitness. Physical fitness is a beautiful, self-inflicted form of adversity that's also replaces the high. And I say adversity because obviously when you're running 27, 28 miles, it's painful, but it's self-inflicted because you chose to, right? Nobody forced me to do it. And so exercise, obviously, it releases the endorphins. It's a natural high, as I'm sure you know. You're a runner, so you know all about it. It gives you that high, and it actually literally changes your brain on a neuroscientific level. It changes how your brain works. One of the neuroscientists I read about, he calls it miracle grow for the brain. So it has a very tremendous impact in my focus, in my awareness, in my own connection with myself and the world around me.
Yeah, and I love just how you.
PTSD was no longer a factor.
Yeah, and I love how you speak to this idea of labels, and not just with the PTSD, and that really is a label, and we are not defined by our labels. We're not defined by what people say you are or who they think you are. It's who we think we are and who we choose to be. In the same way, you chose not to define yourself as a non-runner, or I can't run, or I'm not a good runner, which is funny enough, from all my experience in coaching and being a triathlon coach for many, many years, you get people say, oh, I'm a swimmer, but I'm not a runner. It's like, you just put that label on yourself. You just self-limited yourself by saying that. So I love that perspective that you have, and that perspective that you have is really the perspective of a visionary. A visionary reframes things to see them how they choose to see them, so that they create a reality that they want to create and live from that reality. And I think that's a perfect segue into the obstacles that you did come across. Tell us a little bit about what happened on this leg of your journey, because for those of you out there who are viewing who don't know, we're going to be with Akshay at least over the next year, if not longer, going with him along this journey and checking in and doing these check-ins to see what's going on in your mission. So tell us more about what happened on this leg of your journey.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I was in the Caribbean, and I was supposed to run across 4 countries. Barbados, Grenada, and I was ready for the week yet at about 125 miles, but I was ready in the sense I'd been training. I had just finished a 50-kilometer race. I was putting in 70 to 80 mile, plus weeks, close to 100 miles sometimes. So I was ready for the mileage. But what I did not prepare for, and again, nobody's fault but my own, or at least take into account, was the heat and the humidity. So I got to Barbados, and I started my run, and there was no shade, sun beating down on me. And 14 miles into the run, I remember specifically 14 miles in, because one of the local kind of support people that I had in Barbados, I wouldn't say support people, it was actually a friend that was working with the Barbados Tourism Authority. She won 14 miles, and I was struggling. And usually I'm not struggling in that way after 14 miles. So I was hurting a lot, and was surprised by it. And that 17 miles, I stopped, and I had to run to the restroom, and I could tell I was severely dehydrated, severely. And I had drank 5 liters of water, which was about 1.5 liters, 2 more than I drank when I did the 50-kilometer race, which is even more mileage, in New Jersey. So I was dehydrated, and I was in a lot of pain. So I pushed through and got to about 22 miles in one day, and then I and pretty much ran to my hotel, slept the night in the hotel, woke up and finished the last 5 miles to make it the official southern tip. That was my own sort of technicality, because the hotel was the southern part of Barbados, but I wanted to make it to the southern tip. That was just my own thing. So, so the last 5 miles was one of the most painful 5-mile run I've ever done in my life. And when I run, I never run less than 5 miles. So 5 miles is not a challenge for me at this point. And I'm not trying to say it with arrogance or anything. It's just my training has gotten to that point that it's not a lot of miles for me. But this 5 miles was painful. 2 miles into it, I could tell that my body was already kind of starting to cramp up. And you get to a point in your run that you kind of know at the end of this run, when you stop, it's going to hurt. You're going to have cramps. But it's one of those things that do you finish the last 3 miles? Or do you, and then, you know, feel the inevitable pain that you know you're about to experience? Or do you feel that pain not finishing and going back home? I finished, I got full body heat cramps, which was, you know, just throughout my abs, my legs, my arm. As I'm sure you know, as a runner, cramps are just very, very painful. They're not a pleasant experience. And it's one of those things, though, in hindsight, when I was in it, I wasn't having so much fun, but in hindsight, it's one of those things that pain, the cramps was far less painful than the pain of having not just the technology that I'm now using to measure how your body responds to training and to anything, really. It measures your aerobic, your anaerobic, your central nervous system. It pretty much reduced to a 1, which is the lowest it can go. And the omega wave to the doctor consultation recommended. Obviously, the full body heat cramps. I almost, right after the run, I actually sat over an hour, just nauseous, ready to throw up. Thankfully, I didn't, but just I sat there for an hour waiting for it to happen. Every time I flew after this flight, my ears would pop, and every flight after that, I remember flying to Grenada and Grenada to Antigua, I was just holding my head with horrific pain because for some reason, I guess something in my body wasn't just responding right. My ears would not pop, and it would just, I don't know. That never happens to me. I travel a lot. I'm right now in Portland, right? I fly every month. I'm flying somewhere, but my head would just ache. It's not in the best shape. And as a result, I did not finish the rest of the countries. My plan was after Barbados, I went to Grenada, and I thought I'll rest for a day, and then maybe, you know, recover, heal, and then go to Antigua and continue my runs. But in Grenada, just walking from my hotel room to the restaurant, I would be winded, and that's obviously not normal for me. So I was in pretty bad shape, and I got to Antigua, and I was in even worse shape. And every time I stood out in the sun, I just started feeling dizzy. So being alone out there without sort of a support staff, you know, the fighter in me wanted to push it and just how far to go, but the common sense in me wanted to realize alone out there. And if I were to sort of pass out, the next step in heat exhaustion is heat stroke, which still can be severe, it can even kill you, but can also lead to long-term brain damage. So that's kind of the smarter part of me decided not to do it without any support staff. I mean, I could be on a street in Antigua, pass out, and nobody would know any better. So I just call it quits. And that's sometimes was a tough decision, you know, to kind of have that I had this plan, and now I didn't. You know, I successfully ran one country success in that failure, but there's obviously the failure in that I didn't complete the other. In a journey like this, and I think in any worthy endeavor, you go through it, right? Like there's no way I will this country the world more obstacles. I have zero doubt it's going to be more obstacles, more pain, obviously, and more failures that may come up. And it's really about what you choose to make those failures mean. So instantaneously, I mean, like I said, the hard part was deciding to go. I remember still sitting in evaluating my decisions. My family and wife are firing me, telling me to, you got to come home. Especially my wife was very kind of calm about it. And ultimately, I decided, what do I got to do here? And this was the smarter choice, I think. You know, and obviously hindsight's 20/20, so you never know if I had like tried them, what would have happened. But I feel fairly confident that had I attempted one of these runs, I think I would have ended up in the hospital. And the reality is, when I did come home, I actually did end up in the hospital having to get 2 IVs because it took me a little to recover, and my omega wave readings were continuously in the red. Got 2 IVs, and it almost instantaneously, I chose not to make this mean anything. I kind of smiled about it. This was a cool experience in some ways. In some ways, the failure is a great story, right? It's a great story for myself. It's a great story to share, and it's a great life experience to learn that one, I should have prepared better for the heat. I got to take that into account. So now, for future reference, when I plan a country, I don't just plan for the mileage. I plan for the weather. And that may sound kind of common sense in hindsight, but it's just something for whatever reason it didn't occur to me. So so that was kind of the journey. Then I came home, got the 2 IVs. I was out for about a week and a half. I'm recovered, back at it, and I'm planning next runs.
Wow.
It's a long answer to your question, so I'm going to check out
if
anything comes up with that.
A total of a couple weeks that it took you to recover then? Like 2 weeks or so, you were saying?
It took me about a week and a half to where I felt better, as well as my omega wave readings started kind of getting out of the red and going into the yellow and the greens.
Right, right. I mean, it's very interesting as you talk about this journey and all the things that go through, and that piece about preparation. And sometimes we don't know what we don't know when we're in our journey. And maybe you could prepared and had some more insight to the amount of heat and everything that was going to be there, you know, what type of heat was going to be there. But on the other hand, I think from a bigger scope of things, for anybody who is here in the world to do big things, sometimes we just don't know what we don't know, and it takes the journey to reveal to us those things that we didn't even know that we didn't know in our journey. Exactly. You know?
No, I love the way you put that. You got to get into it. That's the only way you're gonna figure it out, right? So I love the way you put that.
Yeah, yeah, and I know some people are saying you're, just as a real quick tech thing here, your voice is going in and out a little bit, but I'm hearing you okay now. You guys on the outside, can you just put into the comments really quick if you can hear Akshay better now, and if not, let me know, and we can have Akshay situate that. So let me just wait a second and see if I get any type of responses there on the tech part. Akshay is also joining us during his travel, so he doesn't have his full setup that he normally has. So, and here's a couple of, might as well put up a Mike Fountain. It's a good little comment there. I agree that placing labels upon people is detrimental to your potential. So, yeah. Speaking to the potential piece. And I like this one from Christopher Vogelman. Putting one foot in front of the other is my method. I used to run, but would blow out my knees at the 2 or 2.5 mile mark and hobble back to my college dorm. Nostalgia. maybe cycling would be a better thing for you, Christopher.
Biking.
So here's a question from Mike. He says, what advice would Akshay give to help people follow their purpose?
Sure, Mike, thanks. That's a great question. I would say that, you know, like kind of what Lisa said, that is one, you got to start and not expect it to be serious. And this is a great question, Mike, because just yesterday being in Portland, I'm at a seminar and I was with somebody, and we were talking about, you know, wanting to quit his job to follow his purpose, exactly what you're saying, Mike, follow his dream, start his own business. And he said, you know, I just need to stop being afraid and just do this. And that's what I told him was the mistake. You should stop trying to stop being afraid. It's natural to feel afraid. The more you wait to stop afraid, make this decision, you're not going to make this decision. It's very natural to be afraid, and that's okay. Fear is not a negative thing. So one, expect there to be fear in the journey. It will be scary to try something new. That's natural. It's human. We're all human. And so I would say that we'll get clarity, immense clarity on what it is you want to. That's a big kind of, that's going to hold you back from getting there. So, you know, sometimes you have an idea. Okay, like for me, for example, before this, I was a runner and right? Like, it took me a little while. I was, at one point, I wanted to climb the 7 summits, and I still kind of do, but I was like, okay, what's the real clarity I want to do? So now I got immense clarity, run from border to border across every country in the world. Pretty clear, right? Anybody can kind of understand what that means. So that's what I would suggest, is get clarity on the purpose. Don't expect the fear to go away. Embrace that fear. Create some milestones, and not necessarily think about the end of the journey. I mean, I'll tell you right now, Mike, that when I sometimes have these nights where I'll get on Google Maps and start planning out all these countries, it terrifies me. I'm like, can I really do this? Is this really possible? Am I going to do this in my lifetime? And that kind of out is just, it doesn't serve you, right? I mean, it's natural, I think, but it doesn't serve you the more I do this. So instead of thinking about the end, break it down into smaller chunks, break it down into milestones. just before Lisa and me started this, I was talking to her and telling her about some of my next countries, which I will share with you here shortly. That when I'm doing this, I'm not thinking about I got my next country's plan. I'm not thinking about the 20 after that. I kind of have a vague sense, but you really break down the whole journey. And again, going back to the metaphor, I was just speaking to somebody about this again at the seminar that success is not an exciting journey inherently. It's tedious, boring, mundane, and it's not exciting very often. But we only see traditionally when we look at successful people, we see the end result, right? We see Michael Jordan becoming the superstar. We see LeBron James, one of the best NBA players in the world, or whatever it may be, and we don't see the hours of energy got there, the hours of just standing on a court throwing a ball into the hoop, or whatever it may be, And so don't expect it to be exciting. That's kind of my tips, is to kind of, again, sum it up, getting clarity, embracing the fear that's part of the journey, breaking it down into milestone, taking it one step at a time, and embracing the mundane, the tedious part of it, and then celebrating when you do have little rewards, because the hard part is the fact that it's tedious, right? Because it's so tedious and boring, how do we then keep persevering in the face of that? And that's where I think celebrating the little rewards is so important. Like, for example, I mean, yes, I did fail in the sense that I didn't run the other 3 countries, but I did succeed in the sense that I did successfully complete Barbados, and celebrate that, reward that as you go through your own journey. I hope that answers your question, Mike.
That was great. Thanks, Akshay, on that. And we were talking about before in the green room as well how to the point of celebrating successes that sometimes the universe hands us little pieces of evidence that we're moving in the right direction. So even though it feels like you're saying to be successful and move towards that step-by-step process feels tedious and boring at times, but it always seems like the universe will give you pieces of evidence saying, yeah, you're moving in the right direction, keep going. And these little pieces of evidence are the pieces of the celebrations that you can have, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us, as we're pulling together, if you guys out there who are watching live have any other questions for Akshay, go ahead and put those into the comments now, and he can answer those for you. And Akshay, why don't you tell us what's up next for you? What are the next couple things? In fact, I would love if, I'll let you share what you want to share in terms of what's up next for you in terms of this mission and your journey here.
Sure, and if there is anything you'd want me to add, let me know as well. But in terms of what countries I have planned next, I have about 6 weeks before I'm going to kind of venture. I want to spend 6 weeks at home, just relaxing, chilling out with my wife, spending some time, and obviously continuing my training. And then after that, in September, I plan on going to Europe, where I'll be running across 5 countries in Europe. Again, starting off with some of the smaller ones as I build up my endurance, and also build up my my skills in logistically handling this kind of endeavor, because logistically it presents its own challenges, as I expressed with Barbados. So I learned a lot from that trip. So for example, one of the lessons was any country I now do, I'll always have a local contact and always have a local phone with me. Never again will I not have that happen. So lesson learned, right? So when I go to Europe this time in September, I'm going to be crossing, I think I'll start with Andorra, which is 26.2 miles. So it's about almost exactly a marathon across Andorra. And from there, I'll go to Monaco, which is 2 miles, so that'll be a nice relax Monaco, and get to spend some time chilling there because it's supposed to be a beautiful place. Then from there, I'll go to Luxembourg and run 54 miles across Luxembourg, so that'll be a little bit of a bigger one. Then I go to Liechtenstein and run 17 miles across Liechtenstein. And finally, from there, I'll fly across Malta and run about 25 miles across Malta. And then head back to Frankfurt and come back home after that. So that'll be about a week and a half to 2 weeks crossing 5 countries in Europe.
So how many miles total will that be?
So let's see, 54 plus 26, 60, 80, 100, and I guess about 120 probably.
In a week.
100. Yeah, in about a week to 10 days. Because a part of it is also I want to spend a day or two in some of these countries actually seeing the place, like Monaco. Monaco's a 2-mile run, so it's not even half an hour, right? Like 9 minutes will be. So that's something I also just want to see the place, because I've heard I will be in UK. I'm not ready to knock. I'll probably do Scotland, UK from north to south. So that's going to be a little bit of a bigger one. Not on this trip, Mike, but in the near future, I do plan on. Probably by next year, I'll be ready to do UK because I'm doing Ireland for sure next year. Ireland will be 150 miles, and I'm definitely doing that next year.
Well, that's
But,
where
in terms of
Mike
UK,
is in Ireland. So maybe you two need to connect
yeah,
when
for sure,
that time
Mike.
comes.
Yep.
And Mike
I'm
is a
going to be
big runner as well.
Cool. I would love to run with you, Mike. I actually have an Irish fellow Marine friend of mine. He was in the Marines with me, and he's actually born in Ireland. He's an Irishman, so he's going to be running the 150 miles from Cliffs of Moher to Dublin with me next year. That'll be really fun. But that's the plan for right now in September. And I come home again, and then October I'll be at home, just going to continue my training, running. And in November I'll be flying to India, where I'm spending my time with my family. And on the way, I'll be running across Kosovo and possibly Cyprus. I'm not sure about Cyprus yet, but Kosovo is almost a certain. And I'll be running across Kosovo, Cyprus, and then when I go to India, I will be running across. I'll just get to that. Adelaide. I hope I'm saying that question.
Yep.
I mean,
Heidi.
I don't think. How do you say that name, Lisa?
It's Adelheid, but she goes by Heidi.
Okay. Heidi, got it. Okay. Sorry, Heidi, if I destroyed your name. I apologize. I know how that feels. Name's off straight out of body, so I apologize. But yeah, Heidi, I will be coming to Italy again, but not this year for sure. I'm going to start off with some of the smaller ones, as I mentioned. So when I go to India, I'll be running across Sri Lanka, Maldives. Sri Lanka will be 180 miles. Probably doing some other countries in the Asian area. Maybe some of the smaller ones in Middle East, like Bahrain, Qatar, maybe Brunei, some of the smaller ones in that Asian area. Come back to the U.S. in January, and then I'll be doing a lot more in Europe next year. In fact, next year will be a big focus in Europe. So I'll be in Ireland, Belgium, Netherlands, Denmark. All of those I'll be crossing in Europe next year, and Switzerland, some of the ones next year. So next year will probably be primarily in Europe.
And in addition to being a fellow runner, Mike is also a fellow armed services.
Well, pleasure. Mike, we obviously have a lot of similarities. I really look forward to meeting you when I'm in Ireland. Please do connect, Mike, and I'll reach out as well. So maybe when I'm in Ireland next year, it'll more than likely be, I think, May of next year. That's the tentative plans. I just have to confirm with my Irish runner Marine friend. So maybe we can do something together, Mike. That would be awesome.
So just last little thing that maybe you could touch on, because I think this is exciting, is that you're sort of being sought out potentially by some TV shows, or something might be in the works of something happening for you in terms of bringing what you're doing out in a bigger way to the world through the media. I know that that's sort of not totally set in stone, but that's something that's also happening at this point, which I think is evidence that from the universe, as we talked about before, that you're doing exactly what your purpose is and what your passion is.
Fortunate things I seem to kind of been picking up a bit. So the CNN article came out, as you mentioned, and now I'm getting some TV interviews lined up as well, possibly on an international level, a few in maybe Texas, New York, Australia. Nothing's kind of 100% yet, but some of these are happening in the next few weeks. There's a possibility also of getting some sort of documentary-type TV show kind of following along with this. Again, we're not entirely sure how it's all going to play out, but things are starting to move in this direction, which I'm really, really excited about, and just excited in the next couple of weeks here I should have some more concrete information. So maybe the next time we connect, either before my Europe trip or right after, I'll have, I'm sure, a lot more updates to share on that front, because things are good. Things are moving forward very, very well. It's very exciting to see where this whole journey is going, and excited to share it with more people. And the exciting thing also for me, just to add, is that the nonprofit the foundation I'm starting will also be up and running by the end of the summer, by the end of July, before I go on to probably by the end of August, actually, before I go on to my Europe runs. So that's really exciting for me to have the foundation ready. And with that foundation, we can start doing the real message, which is, again, kind of really connecting that human family and having the glow work together for a positive cause. So
awesome.
I'm excited about you.
And as we wrap up the show here, just go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you. They want to know more about you.
Sure, yeah. My website is existing2living.com. That's the word existing, number 2, and living.com. again, the journey from existing, sort of simply existing, to really living a full life. That's kind of what it's about. And there I'll be kind of, I'm just about to, I got a little delayed with my trip to Portland and whatnot, but by next week I'll be posting a little trip report from my trip in Barbados with some videos. You'll get to see me suffering midway through my run, which is always fun. Starting to cramp up and not looking too pleased with life at that point. But I'll be sharing some videos this week. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And if you have any questions,
awesome, that's great.
Questions, please feel free to reach out either through my website. I'll check in on the Google Hangout, the event page as well. But anyway, any questions, anything I can support anybody with, or if you want to run with me, please reach out. I'd love to set something up.
Wonderful. It was great having you back on the show, Akshay. And we're going to, for those of you viewing live or in replay, this is an ongoing series with Akshay, just following his journey. That's really what it's about, is taking a visionary leader who's has a mission impossible, or mission I am possible, and doing it, taking action, and what it looks like to be on the journey. And it's really fun. I think it's a fun project that Akshay agreed to do with me, and say, yeah, okay, I'll take the chance on your Hangout, Lisa. So I really appreciate you coming and spending the time with us, and I know you're in the midst of travels right now, and wish you so much luck in your next little meeting that I know that you have, and get home and rest well before you go out into the world again and start running. And we'll have you back after your next segment, after the next leg of your journey, and hear back from you and some of the lessons that you've gleaned from then.
Sounds good, Lisa, and thank you so much again for having me. It's a real honor and a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And thanks, everybody, to those of you who showed up live for your contributions. We always appreciate it. For those of you watching in replay, please do leave your comments or questions for Akshay, anything that you might have about him. If you want to support him and run alongside him, if you are a runner, I'm sure he wouldn't mind if you happen to be, if he happens to be in one of the countries that you're in. I mean, heck, that's what this is all about, bringing us together as a global community, dissolving the barriers between us, and recognizing that we are one humanity. We are one human species, and we're birthing, I believe, a new humanity here. And thanks again to all of you for coming today. And it really is my belief that we are all visionaries. All of us hold within us the capacity to be a visionary. Each of us has within us an inner calling. Whether you hear it now or don't hear it yet, we have a calling to contribute to the greater good, whether it's just to our family. And I'm not saying just as in just, oh, that's it. It's a big thing. Whether it's to your family, your community, to the world. We are all visionaries. So I hope that you're able to glean a bit of some insights here in today's Hangout into the visionary's journey, and that you'll be back visiting us for our next episode, which is actually tomorrow. We're going to be experimenting with a really cool new format. So come back tomorrow. That's Tuesday, July 15th, I believe, at noon Pacific time. Just to add a quick reminder to you all that you can visit me at www.innerstatecoaching.com to download a free report on how to create radical breakthroughs and to learn more about my programs and services. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you next time.